and welcome to another session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host, Javed Mohammed, and I'm very honored to have with us Christoph Ruepprich, who's an Oracle ace. Christoph, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So let's get right into it. How did you get involved with Apex?
Well, this started back in the late 90s when I was working primarily as a forms and reports developer. And I was working for a company where we actually created forms for character-based displays. So it was, fairly old technology, but it worked really well for what we were doing. And so somehow through, scouring the Oracle news, I came across this article about HTML-DB. And so I started looking at it and checking it out. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. Maybe we could use it for something internally. And so I played with it. Unfortunately, for what we were doing at my company, it wasn't the right thing. But over the years, I kept up with it. And then fortunately, my next job, they were actually looking for an Apex and PL SQL developer. And they were developing a custom Apex application for their client. And when I saw that listing on Craigslist, I jumped on it, and then that became my full-time job, and really enjoyed it.
Okay, so you probably developed like many applications with Apex, and I know it's probably a hard question to ask to pick one, but is there any particular one that you're very passionate about or you feel very proud of?
Yes. One that was a challenge for me, but I thought it was really cool, was an application I did for a client who needed to include maps in Apex. So this was whole new territory for me, and I had to research, the various map APIs and JavaScript libraries and how to use them inside Apex. And so what they wanted is well, let me back up a little bit. They were working for another client of theirs who owned a number of stores throughout a particular region. And that client wanted to see on a map where their stores are and what sort of people lived in that area so they could target advertising to that population. And so not only did we needed to do geolocation for the various addresses that are available for those stores, but we also needed to start looking at psychographic data on a map for those regions. So not only did I create a Google map for the store location, but I also found out how to draw zip code boundaries and carrier routes. So carrier routes are the how zip codes are divided for the mail carriers that deliver mail, which was important because they wanted to do targeted advertising to those clients. And so I was able to display the zip code boundaries, the carrier boundaries, and made those sections clickable. So when you click on one of those polygons, then you get a pop-up screen with psychographic data, meaning it would show you what sort of people, education level, income level, and that sort of thing, how many men, women, how many children, all of those things. And then you could drill down from there to figure out, who lives there and what sort of advertising should be targeted for that population. And yeah, so that was a very challenging project. It really got me to learn JavaScript very well. And it turned out to be just very cool. I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, it sounds like a fascinating project. I'm just wondering, like, over time, you probably developed some best practices, having worked with Apex for a while. So for someone who's kind of new to Apex, And is there any advice you'd give?
Yes, a couple of pieces of advice, and you ask any experienced Apex developer, they will probably tell you the same thing. Um, First of all, keep it simple and keep the customizations to a minimum. So what I'm trying to say with that is Apex is very powerful, has a lot of features built in.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really very little need to do customization. Now I'm saying that after telling you about this project that I had to do, which required a lot of customization,
Mm-hmm.
but that's really not the norm.
Yeah.
For most the applications that we do a lot of internal things, I can go probably 95% native Apex functionality,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it, of course, easier for the next developer to take over
Mm-hmm.
and continue with the application. The other piece of advice would be leave most of the PL/SQL code in the database, meaning, so don't write any fancy procedures, page processes inside of Apex, but rather put them inside of PL/SQL packages inside the database, and keep those two separated. And that's generally a very good way.
And the reason to do that is?
The reason to do that is, once, it keeps your application simple. Mm-hmm. And the other reason is that you can actually do version controlling a lot better now that your code is inside the database.
Mm-hmm. All right. So my next question, I think you kind of answered in part, which was anything to avoid. So I think you touched upon the fact that to avoid customization as much as you can. Anything else you want to share in terms of things to avoid?
Oh, that's a good question. Other than those things, avoid not version controlling. Yeah. So we get, you know, in the old days, you know, we had all our code on our laptops or our PCs, and if something went wrong, it went horribly wrong. So, you know, keep it in version control if you can.
Okay, all right. So this has been a fascinating conversation. I know we've talked about Apex, but looking at you and looking at your background, it begs the question. You've got, it looks like an electric guitar, and you've got a very interesting green screen background. You want to tell us a little bit about your room and how it came to be that way?
Well, I didn't always work with computers. So I actually have a bachelor and master's degree in music.
Oh, wow.
And I attempted to make a living with that back in the 90s, but it became very difficult. And then once I got married, I figured, well, I cannot support a family doing that. So my next passion was working with computers and databases. So I already had some experience creating a database for a music library that we were using, and nothing was computerized. So I created a cataloging system for that. And then became interested in Oracle and got my first DBA certification and kind of took it from there. But yeah, I play music when I can. I'm a bass player.
Oh, nice.
And you pay it, I play it. So I play everything from country music to classical music. And my passion was jazz. So I got my big upright bass.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, it seems like you've got a very full life, and it's good to see, you know, sometimes people can be, sometimes, you know, I'll ask people, what do you do in your pastime? And I'm kind of surprised. It's like work and more work. And that's what, so it's good to see that you've got a, you know, a multi-dimensional life.
Right. Well, the other dimension is back here. I've got, you can't see it very well, but also I have a little maker lab. I like to work with microcontrollers, Raspberry Pis, Arduinos.
Oh, nice.
That sort of thing. And when Alexa came around, I got fascinated with creating voice interfaces, and I actually had made a little demo to voice control Apex with Alexa.
Wow.
And
I'd love to
I
see
have a
that demo.
YouTube link. I didn't prepare it, but maybe I can send it to you later and you can
Yes,
include it
yes.
in the show notes. Yeah, that was a lot of fun doing that. And they had another one using the Raspberry Pi along with Apex. So if you click the button on an Apex page, then you know, something would happen on the Raspberry Pi and vice versa.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun working with those kind of things as well.
Yes. All right. Well, Christoph, thank you so much for sharing not only about Apex, but all the wonderful gadgets and technology you actually worked with. So really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.